Where are you at today?
Well, right this second, I'm sitting in my studio. It's in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, about on the northeast side of Nashville.
Yeah, that looks like a cool place. So I had to ask about it. Like that's the surroundings behind you look great. So
Well, let's see. There's my first painting back there. We'll talk about it.
nice. Yeah, tell
Yeah,
me the story on that since you pointed at it. What's the story on that first painting? How far back does that go?
that goes back a long time now. I had thought I'd try to paint when I got to be an old guy,
Yeah.
but I jumped in the pool a little early. I have an old pickup truck, like my father's. I was driving it up the road here about 8 o'clock in the morning, and a dog ran out in front of me. I managed to miss the dog, and then another dog ran after it, and it went between the wheels of my truck, and I ended up running over it. So I was very upset by that. And I came back home, and I just had this picture in my mind of an abstract painting of seeing that dog laying there like that. It really affected me. I was very upset. And so later that day, I went down to an art store in town, and I bought two canvases, some palette knives, some brushes, and some paint, and asked a lot of questions and came back and painted that painting, which is called Dead Dog on Asphalt.
Wow. What a good tribute to such an unfortunate event. Like you came away with it with some great art.
Well, yeah, and it started me down that road. I did a load of paintings after that and started using them for artwork on my solo records. Usually my solo records include about 5 different paintings inside and out. And over COVID, I taught myself to do digital painting with an
Oh, cool.
iPad and an eye pencil. And I've done, probably 150 of those now. So the new record that I'm going to be putting out sometime, it's finished, but I don't know when we can put it out yet. We have to
Yeah.
wait till we can tour. But it's called Elevator. It has 38 paintings in it, I think, something like
Wow.
that. Digital paintings, beautiful.
Now, did that allow you obviously to be more prolific? Because I mean, 150, that's a pretty astounding number.
You know what? It was like somebody getting addicted to a video game or something.
Yep.
As soon as I got up in the morning, I'd sit in my chair in the bedroom and start noodling with it, and basically trying to figure out what it could and couldn't do, which is it can do anything you can figure out how to do, pretty much. And I just got so absorbed in it, there was nothing much else to do. I was making the record over that period, so I had specific times when I was doing that, but otherwise I was engrossing all my creativity and trying to see what I could do with this new medium for myself. And I just loved it so much, I still do, that I just couldn't stop myself. I kept going and going.
How pandemic influenced was the record? Like how much did that play into it? Like what can you tell us about the record itself?
There's a couple of places in the record where I mentioned things that are going on at that
Yeah.
time, but I didn't want it to be built around that. I very much wanted this record to be a very uplifting record.
Yeah.
And I think it is. That's why I call it Elevator. It elevates your mood, I hope, because I felt that people were getting, as I was, kind of strange around the edges, kind of, oh, wow, what's going on here? And I thought, well, when we come out of this, I want to have a record that makes people feel good again. It's 12 songs. I played everything, did everything, including the artwork, even, as I said. And there's 3 really pretty songs on it, and the rest of them are pretty rocking songs. And all of them are, I don't know, I think it's some of my best writing in a long time, because for one thing, I was able to take a long time and figure out exactly what I wanted to do. Most of my records are stuck in between periods of commitments to do things.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got 3 weeks before I have to be ready to go on tour. Let me do 2 more songs.
Well, you said something there that before I move on, you used the term strange around the edges, and that's like a song title waiting to happen. So you got to do something with that at some point. That's a song right
That's a
there.
good one. Yeah, that's a good one. I have one song on there that's about, trying to escape from this reality by getting on a train and just going somewhere with nowhere. And it's kind of like the romantic idea of a 50s movie where 2 people meet on a train and they just they go somewhere and they don't really ever get off. And that's a good one. That's called A13. That's the name of the
Oh, that's cool.
imaginary train.
Nice.
Anyway, we can move forward from
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You want at some point when the record's out, we can do a full on podcast about that.
Well, this new live record with Gizmodrome, like it's such a thrill to have this thing. And I wanted to kind of start like, what's the tale of you crossing paths with Stewart for the first time? Because with your musical path, it seems like there's lots of potential points of intersection for you too.
Stewart and I only played and met one time before,
Wow.
and that was there was an event in San Francisco that was music from movies. So you had to have one of your songs in a movie, and B, you had to go and play this with someone. So they put me and Stewart and Stanley Clarke together.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
we played one song of Stewart's, one song of mine, Big Electric Cat, and one song of Stanley's. So we rehearsed at Miles Copeland's house, and then we just went and did this one show. And that was a long time ago, 20 years ago. So I hadn't heard from or seen Stewart since. And then all of a sudden I get a call from him one day and he says, "Hey, wouldn't you like to come to Italy?" I said, "Of course, I love Italy." He said, "Wouldn't you just love to play on my new record?" I'm like, "Well, sure, I'll play on a couple things, fly me over." And, I really thought, put those three words together, Stewart Copeland, Italy. Okay, I'm in. I didn't know anything else about it. And I really thought that I was going to just play some guitar on maybe 3 or 4 songs. And by the 3rd or 4th day in, I realized, wait a minute, we're actually making a whole new record here from scratch. And by the 5th day, I think we were all looking at each other like, maybe this should be a band, which was
nice.
Stewart's idea to begin with. He tricked us all, which was a good trick. I liked it.
That's fantastic. Like, I mean, you two have both been involved with some musically quirky projects, I think, across the years. And like what happens here, like really seems to take that quirk element to a really fun level of things, a fun next level. Like,
well, these are all Stewart's songs.
Sure.
And Stewart, at one point when the record was finished, he said, "Well, that's the songs I've written in the last 20 years. That's all I've got. So next record, you're up, Adrian. You have to write the songs." But the songs that he brought in, once we heard, as we would do the songs, he would sing a scratch track for us to listen to. And, his vocals were very, well, a little off key and a lot of character. And as you say, very quirky. And the whole time I was kind of wondering to myself, well, is he going to sing these songs or should me and Mark sing the songs? Because Mark and I are, quote, professional singers, sing in key and things like that. And I tried singing 1 or 2 of them and I realized, no, the character is missing. The Stewart Copeland character of his voice and the way he's so, bigger than life with the way he says things. So finally we came to a solution that was let him sing the verses and let Mark and I sing the choruses in harmony, perfectly pitched, and that would be kind of our deal. So you get all of the fun character of Stewart doing his thing, and then you get a chorus that, sounds more normal. And I really liked it that way. So some people on my Facebook said, "Gee, you should have sang all these songs," but I disagree. Actually, I think the fun, quirky element is Stewart's character in the songs.
Yeah, I'm a big Oingo Boingo fan, and it's like this kind of hits in that zone for me. But also, like I just like you use the word like the character of it, but also like just the vocals from you and Mark, and as you said, like the harmonies, like it's just all like you put the whole package together, and of course all the instrumentation, like it's just a really cool blend. Like you guys have really, come up with like just a cool thing, and it's not surprising to hear that like Stewart like had the idea that this would be a band because it's a band and it's a very cool and unique one that like you guys step on the stage and nobody else is going to sound like Gizmodrome on that night.
I loved the other players. I fell in love with Mark and Vittorio.
Yeah.
And their playing. And the time we spent doing the record, which was maybe, I'm going to say 2 weeks, I don't know exactly how long we did, was so much fun. And we just, we enjoyed ourselves so much being in Italy. We would eat late night dinners in beautiful restaurants, and then we'd go to, in the morning for coffee and in front of a gorgeous old building somewhere. The whole atmosphere was just very, and it was one of those things where you say, okay, I want to be here right now doing what I'm doing right now. And every day was a pleasure. Then they sent to do some promotion. Later on, they sent me and Stewart, just the two of us, around Europe. And we did a promo jaunt for about 10 days there in Paris and Germany and London. And so, I spent a lot of time with Stewart, really got to know him and really loved the guy. And then we did the same in New York for a couple of days. So I missed the whole thing. I wish it would have continued longer, but for some reason, it just abruptly came to a stop. I think that there were problems with availability. And I think that's what you get when you put together, quote, we don't call it a super group, we call it a supper group, because we mostly ate supper together. But I think that's the problem you might have, is everybody has a lot of commitments. So it's hard to get everyone on the same page at the same time. But who knows, maybe it'll happen some more.
What was it like putting together the show? Because this set list, it's got an album feel to it, in the sense that there's a definite sequence, and I love the way the whole show unfolds.
Yeah, that's something we talked about. We wanted to have a contour to the show. I'm actually pretty good at that. I've always done set lists for most of the bands I was in, not for David Bowie, but for King Crimson and the Bears and my solo records. And I have a good feel for, how you build a show, whether you're going to start out with a bang or you're going to come out and gradually build it up, and what the contour is. And I tried to help them apply that to this record too, and to the show, the way the performances were. And I think it worked out really well. Naturally, we needed more material than just the one new record. So we chose some material of mine and some of Stewart's. Mark, for some reason, didn't want to do any of the Level 42 stuff, and that was okay. But what we did do is we did bring along Pete Ray Biggins, which is the drummer for Level 42. So he and Mark were really adept at playing together forever. Pete's a great drummer. And Stewart had it in his mind that he didn't want to just drum all the time. I was like, oh my gosh, really? The world is going to expect you to be the drummer.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I want to be the guitar player. You guys have all the fun. And I said, really? You sure of that? Because I've been both of those. And he said, well, when you're a drummer, you have to sit on your butt back there all day long. And, you don't get to jump around on the stage and everything. And, I think it was about two shows into the set. He said, yeah, it's not so great being the guitar player. You sweat too much.
That's fantastic.
As a drummer too.
Yeah. And it must have been a lot of fun, because you guys play some Police stuff, but it's some of the more obscure Police stuff. So it must have been fun digging through some of that stuff.
That was intentional, I think, on Stewart's part.
Sure.
He didn't want to. We didn't want to do.
It's all right. I still hear you.
Okay, well, I got.
There you go.
That just gave me a low battery signal there. Woo. Yeah, I think he didn't want to touch this so much of the Sting stuff. Not for a personal reason. I think he felt like, why don't we do my material? I was in the band too. Yeah, his material. Sure. I'm saying, yeah.
Do you need to plug in?
And it was fun. I like those songs too. Yeah. I thought Mark did a great job with singing those songs. He's a great singer.
Yeah. And just the original Gizmodrome material that's in the set, that's another thing I loved about the songs from this band, is that the lyrics are pretty fun. Man in the Mountain, I got the keys to your horse. I know too much, with the reference, I've checked all the labels on the cans of Doom. It's all really fun material, and it seems like this would have been really fun stuff to play as a unit. I guess I wondered, what were some of the things you remember, jamming on as a band, as the Gizmodrome thing was kind of coming together?
Well, every song we had to, first of all, put together the basic track for it. So we would play it for a while,
Yeah.
and come to conclusions about, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe we should make this a little longer right here, arrangement kind of things, and and see what everyone was playing. What I remember the most, I'm just being selfish here a little bit, is
Yep.
when we finally got around to the next level, which was adding the top line instrumentation, like Vittorio's piano and synth and my guitar stuff. Man, I just had so much fun playing guitar on that. It reminded me of how I felt when I played on Remain in Light by Talking Heads.
Yeah.
It just, both of those records just felt like a field day for me. Like, wow, everything I think of just seems to work. Every sound I grab and every solo I play just fits perfectly into this. And they were all very excited about what I was playing. We were all sitting in the control room while I did it. So they would watch me, and at the end they go, oh my God, let's keep that one.
Yeah.
So I had a great time doing that part of it. And doing the vocals was a little more, just pro work, like, okay, let's sit down, figure these harmonies, let's rehearse them, and doing that. But the playing was a lot of fun for me.
And in the set list for this live record, there's a couple of King Crimson tracks, from the Discipline record stuff that you wrote. Like, how did you arrive at pulling that stuff into the set list? It seems like those are probably a couple songs from that Discipline record that are probably pretty special to you.
They are very special songs to me, and they always will be. But I think the first choice we made, they said, well, what would you choose from your catalog? You should do a King Crimson song. And I immediately thought of how rambunctious it would be to have Pete Ray and Stewart and I doing, Thelahun Jinjit, because that's just a song that I thought we could really whip out. And then I knew that Vittorio would be able to do a lot of, orchestration to it, as he did. I love all the stuff he does with synths, and his piano playing brought a whole different vibe. It's been a long time since I've been in a band with a great pianist, and he's really that. And then of course, Mark, I knew Mark would be able to do Tony's thing and take it his own place, because very much like the kind of playing that Mark did. I think Elephant Talk was just fitting for the band on a, as you say, on a fun level. Like this is kind of a quirky, weird song of yours. Let's do that one. And then the third one I think we chose was, well, let's do one of your regular songs. And once again, more because of the jungle drumming kind of aspect of it, I chose Young Lions, which I felt like we could all have fun with.
Yeah, and Elephant Talk, like you mentioned how that song's like a little bit out there. Like, so is the story that you, I guess, took words out of a dictionary to kind of form the initial basis of the lyrics? Is that how that went?
If you have 5 minutes, I can run upstairs to my bedroom and bring out the little dictionary. It's a little pocket-sized Merriam-Webster.
Yeah.
And if you look in the A's, they'll be highlighted, every word that's about talking or conversation or anything. Then you'll go to the B's saying, and that's what I did. I just went through all the way through the E's, and I thought, well, that's a lot of words. That should be enough.
Yeah. How do you go about fashioning that into a song from that point?
Well, I was having trouble at that point. I had just joined King Crimson as their songwriter, singer, frontman, lyricist. And I didn't know quite what to do. I mean, King Crimson had a big history, and I thought, well, let me try some interesting things here first and see if they stick, and that was one of them.
I love the story that's out there of how you joined King Crimson. I believe that Fripp calls you, and one of the reasons he calls you is because you're known to be a pretty straight guy, that like you'll be dependable. And on the night that he calls you, I guess you're out with the Heads, and you guys just got in England, and you'd had a good time, and you were pretty liquored up, it sounds like.
Which is something I never did. And you're right, we arrived in London late at night, and we were all exhausted. And we said, they asked us where we wanted to go. And Jerry Harrison said, I know this great Russian restaurant. So we went to this Russian restaurant, and the restaurant was downstairs. They sort of kept you in this lobby upstairs, which was crowded with people. And they kept bringing by these trays of flaming vodkas. And, everyone was just, okay, let's have a flaming vodka. And they kept us there for a long time. By the time we went down to the restaurant, we were all drunk.
Yeah.
And eventually it was a very expensive meal for our promoter to foot the bill for. But eventually we're throwing caviar around the room. You know, I was one of the subdued ones, but you have to understand this was a band of pretty crazy characters too. And there were a lot of us and our crew. So it was a big gang of people. That's why it took so long to seat us, I guess. And so the next morning, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sleeping. I'm just, you know, dead to the earth, to the world. And the phone rings real loud, and it's Robert. Oh, it's Robert Tripp. You know, I know you're not one to be out raving at night, and I thought it'd be okay to call you. And I said, could you please call me back in a couple of hours? And strange way to start a new band, but when he did call back, he said he'd like to start a band with me and Bill Bruford, and I said, okay, yes.
That's so crazy. And Tony Levin in the mix as well. I mean, like what a combination of creatives there. That would have been a thrill to be a part of that.
It was. I was a huge fan of all the early King Crimson work, and of course in Robert and Bill themselves. Tony was not included yet. Robert hadn't chosen
Sure.
a bassist, but we later on in New York we auditioned 30 people, and Tony was obviously the one. From the moment he walked in the door, we said, "That's the guy."
You mentioned Remain in Light, and you've been like associated with so many like interesting creative folks over the years. Like what was it like being in David Byrne's orbit creatively?
Well, David Byrne is as you think he would be. He's pretty quirky, and I've been told he has some Asperger problems, but he handles them very well. So he's a unique kind of person. He doesn't say a lot, and sometimes he laughs at the wrong time or something, you know. But I really enjoyed being around him. I loved the things that they were doing. Once again, that was another great band to be in, a part of it. I loved that when we went on tour, it was very evident that this band was just shooting upward. Their arc was, wow, this band is getting real popular. And I'm standing here on stage watching it happen. I loved all the people in the band, as I always do. That's, you know, I always love the people I work with. And the music, as I said, was just custom made for me. So I ended up doing, you know, 3 Jerry Harrison records, David's solo record, the Tom Tom Club, Remain in Light, and their live record, all of that done in 1 year.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And I talked to Stewart earlier this summer, and he of course had a chance to see the Remain in Light thing you've been doing with Jerry, and that, like, he was raving about it. I mean, it has to be pretty incredible for you getting a chance to resurrect that with Jerry.
It is incredible. We talked about it for a few different years, and nothing was really in place to do it. And then he produced Turquoise.
Yeah.
And in producing them, he realized, oh, they are the perfect band. What Adrian and I should do is just join forces with them. They were put together originally, Turquoise, based on their love of Talking Heads music.
Oh, nice.
The bass player and the guitarist, that's how they started the band. So over the years, they had perfected that feel, and they had a horn section, they had female singers. It made it just exactly what we wanted it to be. And speaking of Stewart, we played after them, after Oysterhead, for our first show.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a little bit of pressure there, because they're a huge band in the festival world.
Yeah.
And both Jerry and I were very nervous. Jerry hadn't played on a stage like that for 20 years, but I was nervous because I hadn't played for 20 months due to COVID. So just before, you know, they went on stage, Oysterhead did, and I was really kind of, you know, feeling funny. Went on stage, stood beside the stage, and watched them for a couple of minutes. Before I knew it, I'm dancing around, you know, to their music, and I think to myself, what am I thinking? You know, this is what I do. I love this. And I wasn't the least bit nervous when I went on stage after that. Thank you, Oysterhead. You guys loosened me up.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's cool. This Gizmodrome live record, what were the circumstances that this particular show was recorded? I mean, I know these days you can record everything. Did you guys like basically record everything and pick this one? Like, how did we arrive at getting what becomes this live record?
I don't know. I'm sure that it's a compilation from more than one place, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because there was no one show that had seemed to have it all. I mean, we were just starting out. We only got to play 6 shows, and they were, they were in pretty big places in London and Japan,
Yeah.
and so we were still working out how to be a band. But I think they must have gone through and handpicked the performances of each song. Now, how many performances there were, I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. I wasn't involved in putting together the record because it was all done in Italy, and they didn't really need me to be there to do that. I would have happily done it if they wanted, but they had enough people doing it.
And I tell you what, man, this is just one of those shows that, like, I don't know if it unfolded this way originally, but like hearing the way the band starts with a Macapipa, like starting things off, like that's just an incredible song. And it's like, if you've never heard a note of the band prior to that, you hear the way you guys throw that one down, and you're like, okay, I'm in for a good night.
That was really one of my favorites. And when we were doing that at the end, I just made that up all of a sudden.
Yeah,
and the
nice.
whole song sort of sprung to life out of that guitar sound and the feel of it. It just sounded like nothing that else that was on the record, and the drumming so brutal and tribal kind of, and then with Stewart's voice through the sort of megaphone kind of vocal sound. I agree with you. There's not much like that, and I always loved that one. Now, I just want to point out, my phone is probably going to go dead. If it does, I'm going to say I'm sorry ahead of time, but we can talk till it does.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, this has been a good conversation. So if it wraps here, it wraps here. But I guess where I'll wrap up is, as we speak on the 1-year anniversary of Eddie Van Halen's passing, also about a week after David Lee Roth announces he's going to retire, for you as a music fan and a guitarist, can you talk a little bit about experiencing the music of Van Halen for the first time?
Well, first of all, I thought David Lee was a great frontman.
Yeah.
A lot of people have different opinions, but I thought he was a big part of the band. Him and Eddie, of course, was the shining star of the band. Eddie with his unbelievable guitar playing, and I liked what they did. I thought it was really, really great band. Fortunately for them that MTV came along when it did. But here's an interesting story from my perspective. I, along with the guitar player in the Bears, Rob Fetters, we were both walking along Sunset Boulevard one night. Rob had come into town, and we were hanging out, having a good time, walking along, seeing sights we'd never seen before. We were all, new to the whole thing. And we saw the Whiskey A Go-Go. And
Nice.
We went in the Whiskey A Go-Go, naturally. Now, before that time, I had just started playing this thing where you hold a note and then you do this.
Yeah.
It's now called tapping, but back then we didn't have a name for it. And Rob Fetters and I were the only 2 guys that we knew were doing it. It was on a Steely Dan record, and I figured out that's how the guy must have done it. He was some studio player. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start doing that. And Rob started doing it too. We walked in, and there's Van Halen, unknown, unsigned, no one knew him, playing like crazy on stage. And Eddie Van Halen's doing that all over the neck of the guitar. And we looked at each other and we said, hey, he's doing that thing that we do. And we laughed and we said, and he's doing it better than we do.
That's fantastic.
Because he had already taken it and advanced it to the next level. And good for him. It became something that a million different young guitar players tried to do since then.